They charged me $1,200 for unauthorized excavation, even though the pipe they claimed I broke was theirs, and it leaked 48 gallons an hour into my pasture. On day 13 of their silence, I found the signature that would make the whole thing crumble. Welcome to my channel. I'm Daniel Moore, civil engineer out of Denton County, Texas, and homeowner number 47 in a subdivision that forgot who actually owns the dirt under their feet. If you care about property rights, fair governance, and watching bureaucrats hoisted by their own paperwork, subscribe and stay close. Where are you watching from tonight? I like knowing which corner of America's HOA maze you're trying to survive. It started the spring after my father died. He left me this 5-acre parcel and one request scratched in his notebook: keep the creek clean. He meant the small irrigation line that used to feed his pecan trees, long before the development rose behind it. I promised I would. 2 months later, the Homeowners Association extended a drainage project right through our shared boundary, and a week after that, their contractor dropped a 30-inch PVC line across my trench like it was open pasture. When I confronted them, the HOA president, a man named Randy Coulter, smiled through his gold-rimmed glasses and said, "You should be thanking us, Dan. We're improving your property value." The sentence clicked in my head like a safety catch. I told him he needed an easement. He said the board had implied consent. There's no such thing in Texas law for a buried pipe, but he waved his clipboard anyway. For 3 weeks I waited for their permit copy. None came. Then the certified letter arrived. Violation notice number 1123. Subject: unauthorized interference with community infrastructure. They fined me $2,200 for tampering with their pipe when I fenced off my side. The envelope smelled faintly of toner and arrogance. I didn't sleep that night. I kept picturing the leak soaking through my father's old irrigation trench, eroding what he'd built. My wife Elena told me to let it go, but the sound of running water under the soil made it impossible. By morning, I'd decided to audit every permit they'd ever filed. I started at the county clerk's office. The woman behind the glass window, Mrs. Whitaker, wore bifocals chained with turquoise beads. She slid me a binder so thick it creaked. Inside were deed plats, amendment filings, and one stamped utility plan dated July 14, 2016. The line in question stopped exactly 3 feet before my parcel. No extension, no recorded easement. My heart jumped once, sharp and clean. Knowledge nugget number 1. In Texas, an HOA's common area authority ends at recorded boundaries. Crossing without an easement is civil trespass, even if the intent is community improvement. I photocopied every page, 23 in total, and labeled them in red pen. Then I called my old friend Mitch Alvarez, a land surveyor who drinks from a thermos of black coffee like it's oxygen. He came that afternoon, set up his tripod, and confirmed the line protruded 2.9 feet onto my side. They didn't even pull a new benchmark, he said, shaking his head. That's rookie stuff. The next board meeting was held in the clubhouse, under fluorescent lights that hummed like mosquitoes. I brought the binder. Randy sat flanked by 2 other directors, both adjusting their tablets. I placed the plat in front of him and asked, "Who authorized this crossing?" He leaned back, smirked. "The community did, Daniel. Majority vote." "Show me the minutes." He tapped his screen. "Executive session, not for public release." The room filled with the smell of burned coffee from the urn by the door. I realized then this wasn't about reason. It was about control. After the meeting, a neighbor named Laura Green caught up to me outside. She was mid-50s, former paralegal, always carried a notepad with tiny bullet points. "You're not crazy," she said. "They ran a similar pipe behind my fence last year. Said it was temporary drainage. It's still there." We stood under the sodium lights, the gravel crunching as people drove off. Laura suggested we file an open records request with the county engineering office. I agreed. For the next 6 days, we shared a small war room, her dining table, maps, coffee mugs, stacks of ordinances. We found inconsistencies in 4 separate filings: signatures missing, 1 notary expired, and a permit number duplicated across 2 subdivisions. It smelled like lazy corruption. When I emailed the HOA manager requesting to review financials related to the pipeline, I got a 2-sentence reply. Denied. This is proprietary work product. That line would later hang them. By the end of the second week, my inbox filled with community gossip threads accusing me of endangering property values. Someone even posted a blurry photo of me near the trench with the caption, "Pipe vandal caught again." That night, Elena poured wine and said softly, "You're starting to sound like your dad before he lost the farm." The words hit harder than I let show. He'd fought the city over a right-of-way and died with the appeal still open. I wasn't going to repeat that ending. So I turned the fight into a project plan. Tasks, dates, deliverables. My first goal: find who insured that line. Every pipe has an underwriter. Every underwriter requires a legal description. Late Sunday, Mitch called. "I pulled their GIS data," he said. "Guess what? The HOA's coverage stops at parcel 36. You're parcel 37. That meant the insurer had no liability for leaks on my side, and if the pipe failed, it was their uninsured trespass. I wrote that in bold letters across my whiteboard: uninsured trespass equals leverage. I didn't yet know how much that leverage would change the community, but I knew it was the start of something bigger than a water line. The following morning, I printed a copy of the insurance declaration and circled the coverage boundary. I slipped it into a manila folder labeled Phase 1. The paper edges sliced my thumb, a small red bead that marked the start of the long retaliation to come. By Tuesday, word spread that I was lawyering up, though I hadn't yet called anyone. That rumor worked better than any press release. The HOA slowed their emails, like a school of fish sensing a shadow. But on Thursday morning, I found a bright orange tag zip-tied to my gate. Immediate compliance inspection, 24 hours. They gave themselves authority they didn't have again. Elena watched from the porch, arms folded. "They're baiting you," she said. "I know," I replied, "but bait's how you catch the right fish." When the inspector, really just a maintenance contractor with a clipboard, arrived, I kept my phone on the dash recording audio. Texas is a one-party consent state, which meant it was perfectly legal. He walked the fence, scribbled, then handed me a pre-printed sheet with soil disturbance, checked in 3 boxes. I signed "Received Only," dated it, took a photo, and filed it in what had become binder number 2. Documentation was oxygen now. That evening, I finally called attorney number 1, Sarah McKee, administrative law specialist, 42, ink stains on her cuff and a quiet, surgical calm. I'd met her years ago when a city tried to seize right-of-way through a drainage easement. She listened without interrupting. Then she said, "Send me the CCRs, every amendment, and the inspection sheet. Don't reply to their emails." Should I pay the fine? Not yet. Let them stack violations. The bigger the turn, the louder the judge hears the word harassment. Knowledge. Nugget number 2, under Texas Property Code, FAR 209.006, an HOA must give at least 30 days to cure a violation and offer a hearing before assessing a fine. They'd skipped both. 2 days later, Randy showed up in person. His truck idled across my drive, exhaust curling over the grass. He stepped out with a smirk that said he enjoyed the performance. "You're making this ugly, Daniel," he said. "I'm just keeping records," I replied. "You could have asked before fencing the trench. You could have asked before digging it." His jaw tightened. "We'll see how the board feels about that attitude." Then he turned, heels grinding gravel like punctuation marks. That night, Laura texted, "They're holding an emergency vote tomorrow to authorize legal action. 6:00 p.m. Clubhouse." I didn't plan to stop them. I planned to listen. I sat in the back, baseball cap low. Randy read from a statement about non-compliant residents threatening community cohesion. The vote passed 4-1. The lone dissent was Tom Barrett, a soft-spoken board treasurer who usually kept his head down. Afterward, I caught him by the vending machine, fumbling quarters. "Why'd you vote no?" I asked. He shrugged. "Numbers don't add up. They moved $18,000 from reserves to contingency legal. That's not procedural." "Can you prove it?" He smiled sadly. "Proof's locked in the manager's laptop, but I can tell you when the transfers started. April 3rd. April 3rd was the same week they laid that pipe. By Sunday morning, the retaliation campaign hit full throttle. Anonymous emails to neighbors claimed I was sabotaging drainage, endangering children. Someone even called in a wellness check on my wife while I was at the hardware store. 2 officers came to the door, polite but uneasy. Elena called me in tears. That night I filed a police incident report just to create a timestamp. The next week, HOA compliance letter has arrived almost daily. Mailbox paint too faded, trash cans visible after 8 a.m., weeds exceeding 3 inches. I measured them, 2.7 inches exactly, and wrote it down. I stapled photos with date overlays. My binder grew to 3 inches thick. Then I got a call from Sarah. "We're close," she said. "I found something in their filings. The community's original utility agreement expires at the 10-year mark, this December 31st. Renewal requires 67% homeowner approval." I nearly laughed. They haven't told anyone that, have they? Nope. They probably forgot it's recorded. That was the seed of reversal number 1, the secret leverage. If I could acquire the parcel that hosted the community's water meter vault, I could dictate access once that agreement lapsed. So I called Mitch again. "Find me who owns Parcel 19, the strip by the water vault." He called back 2 days later. "Foreclosure last year, county still holds title. Tax sale scheduled in 6 weeks. 6 weeks. A timer started ticking in my head. I opened an LLC through a registered agent, Clear Creek Holdings, LLC. No direct tie to my name. Bought the tax sale notice. Set a calendar reminder. Auction, July 14th, 10 o'clock a.m. Same date as the original 2016 utility plan. Poetic. Over the next month, I kept my mouth shut and let them keep digging. Literally. They extended that illegal pipe another 40 feet deeper into my side, thinking I was cowed. I logged each day's progress with photos, measuring tape, time-stamped by GPS metadata. When the trench crossed the old pecan line, I felt something break inside me. But it wasn't despair. It was the last string of patience snapping in silence. Mid-June brought rain, heavy metallic rain that filled the trench until the pipe floated. I watched from my truck as 2 workers stomped on it, trying to submerge it again. They didn't see me. Water poured through the seam where their joint hadn't. It'd been glued. I filmed it, 4K resolution, geotag on. That leak would become Exhibit A. The night before the auction, Elena kissed my cheek and whispered, "Whatever happens, make sure it ends clean." "It will," I said. "Clean and permanent." The next morning, Clear Creek Holdings won Parcel 19 for $4,300. I signed the deed with shaking hands, filed it the same day, and drove straight home. Randy happened to be outside, talking to a contractor. He waved sarcastically. "Morning, neighbor," he said. "Morning, landowner," I replied, and smiled wider than he understood. I spent that evening drafting a letter, polite, professional, advising the HOA of my new property interest adjacent to the water infrastructure, and offering cooperative access under formal license. No threats, just law. I printed 3 copies, certified mail. Sarah reviewed it first. "You just bought yourself a sledgehammer," she said, capping her pen. "Visual beat number 1. I sealed the deed copy, embossed stamp still warm, and slid it into a fireproof lockbox beside my father's irrigation journal. The sound of the latch clicking shut was the cleanest thing I'd heard all year. 2 days after the auction, Randy called an emergency meeting, this time about a property dispute threatening community water service. His voice trembled under its own arrogance, which was how I knew he'd finally felt pressure. I didn't attend. Sarah advised against it. Instead, I listened through the open clubhouse window, sitting quietly in my truck, the scent of wet clay mixing with exhaust. "We'll take it to court if we have to," Randy told the board. "He can't just buy land and hold our infrastructure hostage." But I hadn't threatened anyone. My letter had been cordial and fully lawful. I'd simply stated that, under Property Code Federal 11.086, any encroachment on privately owned land must be under written license or removed within 60 days. The countdown clock had started the moment they signed for that certified envelope. July 21st, precisely 60 days before the utility agreement expired. Knowledge nugget number 3. A property owner who allows continued trespass after notice waives claim to damages but retains the right of removal. That detail would become my precision tool. That evening, Laura and Tom met me at my workshop. The smell of oil and rain filled the room while the fluorescent light buzzed overhead. I laid out a map, the new deed, and a printed copy of the community's bylaws. Tom rubbed his temples. "You realize if they lose access to that meter, the subdivision's water shuts off." "Temporarily," I said. Long enough for them to understand boundary law. Laura sipped coffee from her chipped mug. You're not doing this just for you, are you? I looked at the line that crossed my father's creek. No, I'm doing it so they stop thinking the land belongs to their signatures. That night I started tracking the HOA's next move. Their paralegal sent a letter titled, Cease and Desist Trespass Claim. Ironic, since they were the trespassers. Sarah laughed when she saw it. They're drafting from Google. Look at this. They cite the wrong statute. This is from Florida. We filed our response. 2 pages, plain, unheated. It included the parcel map, the leak photos, and the insurance declaration. The final line read, Our client reserves all rights and remedies, but is open to amicable resolution before 31st December 2025. From then on, silence. The HOA went dark for 3 weeks. Then, mid-August, their newsletter landed in every mailbox with a special assessment proposal to cover unexpected infrastructure legal costs. Each homeowner owed $385. I didn't pay mine. Instead, I forwarded the document to the County Consumer Protection Office. By September, the gossip engine started again. The HOA's Facebook group pulsed with comments calling me the man holding the whole neighborhood hostage. So, me even said I was profiting from water extortion. I answered none of it. Sarah kept reminding me, silence is leverage. Late one evening, Tom texted, You should know, they're trying to move the meter vault. That was the breaking point. Moving a vault required a county permit and inspection, both public records. I pulled the application the next morning. It had Randy's electronic signature and a declaration of ownership for Parcel 19. He'd lied under penalty of perjury. I printed the page, pinned it to my corkboard, and sat back in my chair. My heart didn't race. It steadied. I finally had proof that wasn't just leverage. It was liability. Still, I knew better than to strike too soon. I needed one more piece. Confirmation that their special assessment funds were being spent on legal defense, not infrastructure. Laura used her paralegal instincts to file a financial records request as a homeowner. They ignored her. That was mistake number 8. When the response window expired, Sarah drafted a demand for inspection under TOUSH 209.005, the transparency statute. We sent it certified on September 19th. The return receipt came back unsigned but date-stamped, enough for a record. Meanwhile, I started preparing my property for winter. Each shovel of soil I moved over that illegal pipe felt like a countdown tick. I'd hear the thud of dirt hitting PVC and imagine Randy's smugness crumbling piece by piece. Then came the oddest retaliation yet. One morning in October, I found a community improvement crew dumping gravel along my fence line. No notice, no markings, just men in orange vests unloading from a rented truck. I recorded everything. When I asked for a work order, the foreman shrugged, said, "Ask Randy." That night, Elena placed her hand on my arm and said quietly, "I want this to end before Thanksgiving." "I'm trying," I said, "but endings have to be built." Around that time, my channel began to grow unexpectedly. Neighbors from other states started emailing, asking for copies of the forms I'd used. That's when I realized this wasn't just my battle. It was a pattern repeating across America, street by street. If you've ever fought an HOA, tell me below, what was the moment you realized they'd crossed a line? If you're still in it, what would help you fight smarter next time? And if you've never dealt with one, leave a message for the ones who lurk in the comments. They read everything. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, the county clerk posted the year-end utility renewals. As predicted, the HOA hadn't filed theirs. They'd missed the 67% homeowner approval requirement. That meant on January 1st, the entire subdivision's water service would legally revert to the underlying parcel owner, me, through Clear Creek Holdings. I called Sarah. "So what happens now?" She exhaled slowly. "They'll panic. Don't gloat. Document every call and visit. This is where they make their biggest mistakes." I nodded, though she couldn't see me. Outside, the wind rattled the metal gate like an omen. The leak in their pipe still hissed faintly under the soil, whispering of pressure and consequence. Thanksgiving came and went without a word from the board. Then, early December, I got a handwritten card in the mail. No return address, just block letters. "Be careful what you shut off." I slipped it into binder number 4 and logged the date. 12/3/25, 8:42 a.m. Threats were just more evidence. That same week, I noticed something odd. The HOA had hired security to patrol the neighborhood at night. A single off-duty deputy in a white SUV parked near the entrance, lights dim. Elena asked if I felt safer. I told her the truth. I felt studied. Tom texted, "Emergency board meeting, Wednesday. Agenda, utility continuity plan." I smiled. They were finally realizing what was about to hit them. Inside the clubhouse that night, tension hung thick as bleach. Randy stood by the projector showing an outdated TED map, claiming they'd secured a new easement through friendly negotiation. I waited for the lie to finish before standing. "Name the owner," I said. He froze. "That's confidential." "I am the owner, Randy." The room murmured. He flushed, stammered something about recent developments, and cut the projector. The meeting adjourned 5 minutes later, but not before I noticed two residents, husband and wife, watching me with cautious curiosity, like they'd just seen the first crack in a dam. When I stepped outside, Laura was waiting in the cold wind, scarf pulled tight. "He didn't tell anyone you bought it," she said. "I know. Makes the next step easier." The next morning, I filed notice of ownership and access restriction with the county recorder, a simple one-page form citing the legal description of Parcel 19 and revoking all unlicensed encroachments effective January 1st. It wasn't dramatic, but it was binding. Over coffee that evening, Sarah called. "You just triggered their insurers. Once the policy expires with no recorded renewal, the underwriter sends a coverage termination notice. Expect fireworks." Knowledge nugget number 4. HOA boards often forget that most general liability policies exclude infrastructure on non-owned land. The second the property status changes, coverage collapses like a tent in wind. The first call came December 9th, 7:14 a.m. Randy's number. I let it ring twice before answering. "We need to meet," he said, voice sharp. "I'm busy this week. People depend on that water." "Then get them to vote, Randy. 67%. You've got 22 days. Click. That day, a courtesy inspection notice appeared again on my gate. This time, I called the county directly. The inspector on record, Mr. Ingram, confirmed he'd issued no such order. "Seems someone's playing code games," he said. I asked for an email confirming that statement. He sent it within the hour. More documentation. By mid-December, the HOA newsletter turned desperate. It begged for volunteers to help ensure continuous community services. The fine print. Requested proxy signatures for an emergency utility renewal. The signature line? Blank, no explanation. Classic attempt at procedural fraud. Laura and I went door to door, explaining the truth calmly, showing neighbors the official records. By the fifth house, people were furious, not at me, but at the board. "They said you were suing everyone," one man muttered. "Guess that's another lie." That night, Elena laughed for the first time in months. "You're turning into the HOA's community outreach department. Someone's got to do it legally," I said. The days crawled toward Christmas. I kept my head down, logged every message, every voicemail. The harassment slowed as residents started demanding open books. I even saw Tom one evening walking with his wife, looking relieved. "They're cornered," he said. "Randy called an attorney from Dallas, expensive one. He's out of his depth." But pressure makes people dangerous. On December 26th, I woke to find my gate chain cut. The padlock lay in the dirt, bolt sheared clean. Footprints led toward the trench line. I followed them quietly with my phone light. The pipe access cover was open, tools scattered. Someone had tried to install a secondary valve. Illegal again. I called the sheriff. Deputy Nolan Hayes, mid-30s, calm eyes, arrived within 20 minutes. I showed him the deed, the trespass line, the broken chain. He radioed it in, then said, "We'll document this as criminal mischief and trespass. You did right calling us first." He took photos, gave me the case number, and left. Neutral authority, logged and witnessed. 2 days later, HOA emails shifted tone. The board regrets recent confusion and is exploring cooperative resolution. They were panicking. Still, I didn't answer. Silence had become my best weapon. In those quiet nights between Christmas and New Year's, I'd sit by the fireplace, the lockbox on the table beside me, the deed and photos inside. Elena would fall asleep on the couch while I listened to the faint hiss of the leak outside, the sound of time running out. If you were in my shoes, would you pull the trigger on January 1st and shut it off? Or would you give them another chance to come clean first? Tell me what you'd do, or at least like the video so I know how you'd vote. On December 30th, a white SUV rolled up our drive again. Deputy Hayes. He stepped out, hat in hand. "Got a heads up," he said. "HOA tried to file an injunction this morning. Judge tossed it. Lack of standing. They've got nothing until that renewal passes, and it's not going to." The next night, I slept soundly for the first time in months. At exactly 12:01 a.m., January 1st, 2026, the utility agreement expired, and with it, every ounce of false power they'd held over this land. The new year came in with a hard frost. The pasture glistened silver under the moonlight, and somewhere beneath that frozen crust, their pipe sighed its last unauthorized breath. At sunrise, I walked the line with a wrench in one hand and my phone in the other. I didn't need force, just procedure. I reached the vault, knelt down, and turned the valve 1/4 counterclockwise. The sound was subtle, a hollow click, like the end of a sentence. The water meter spun once, then stopped. I took a photo of the reading. 0.0 GPM. No dramatics, no vandalism. Just control. By noon, Randy's voicemail filled my inbox. "You've cut off an entire subdivision," he barked. I called him back once, calm as rain. "Correction, Randy. I've secured my property." "You can't." "I can, and I did. You have 67% approval and a signed license? Then show it." Click. The HOA scrambled. Trucks rolled in, residents arguing on lawns. By the third hour, they'd called the county utility department, who sent an engineer. Ms. Patel, orange vest, clipboard, every movement professional. She walked the site, checked my deed, read the notice on the vault, and nodded. "You're the lawful parcel owner. They need written permission or a new permit. We can't intervene." Neutral authority, documented on body cam. That night, the neighborhood Facebook group lit up with panic and blame. Some defended me. Most cursed the board. "All they had to do was follow the law," one comment read. Others posted screenshots of their dry taps. Randy tried to moderate, but every post he deleted multiplied outrage. For the first time, silence worked against him. Then came the retaliation montage, the desperate kind. They sent 2 more violation letters. Yard debris. Noise disturbance. I countered with time-stamped photos showing snow-covered stillness. Someone slipped a flyer under my wiper blade claiming I was profiteering from public utilities. I scanned it for fingerprints, half joking, half serious. That weekend, my mailbox was knocked over. Elena found our dog gate unlatched. Small things meant to shake us, but I'd been raised by a man who built fences for a living. I knew how to tighten every hinge after dark. Still, one night I woke to headlights pausing outside our window. I held my breath until they rolled on. That was my lowest point, not fear of losing the fight, but of what this fight could turn me into. The next morning, Laura brought cinnamon rolls and steady eyes. "You've already won," she said. "Now decide what kind of winner you'll be." She was right. I didn't want vengeance. I wanted correction. So I sat with Sarah that afternoon and drafted an offer. Simple, dignified. Access license proposal, renewable annually for $1, conditioned on a community-wide vote to implement structural reforms, term limits, public budgets, and open meeting requirements. "This is your reversal 2 seed, Sarah said, pen tapping rhythmically. "But wait until they come crawling." I nodded. The patience phase again. 2 days later, I woke to the sound of a diesel engine idling. Through the blinds, I saw a news van. Channel 8, local. A reporter stepped out, notebook in hand. The community had called the press. I slipped on my jacket, walked out to the fence line. "Mr. Moore," she asked, "are you the homeowner who shut off the subdivision's water?" "I'm the landowner enforcing recorded boundaries," I said. "The HOA built without an easement." "Can we film the valve?" "Sure, but stand on this side. The rest is private." By the 6 o'clock broadcast, the headline read, "HOA overreach leaves neighborhood dry." The next morning, the county public works office called, not to scold, but to confirm details. "We've received multiple inquiries," the director said. "Your filings are clean, nicely documented. That's when the dominoes began to wobble. Insurance carriers notified the HOA that coverage for their infrastructure was suspended pending ownership clarification. Their lawyer quit the case 3 days later. Non-payment of retainer. Then, the bank holding their reserve account froze transactions over governance irregularities. By the following week, Randy called an emergency open meeting. It was packed. I sat in the back with Laura and Tom. You could smell the panic, cheap coffee, nervous sweat, ink drying on paper. Randy slammed a folder on the podium. "This is extortion," he said. I stood. "No, this is accountability." He glared. "You're tearing this place apart. It was already cracked. I'm just letting the sunlight in." The audience erupted, half clapping, half shouting. A woman in the front row stood up. "My pipes are dry because you lied about the permit, Randy." Another shouted, "Show us the vote." When it calmed, I walked to the front, handed a copy of my deed to the county inspector, who'd come after the news aired. "Everything's documented," I said. He looked at the paper, then at Randy. "He's right. This line crosses his boundary. You'll need his license or a new route." That was the moment, the public confirmation, the neutral authority in plain sight. The room fell silent except for the hum of ceiling fans and someone's phone recording everything. If you've ever stood up to a system that thought you'd fold, tell me how you kept your nerve when they tried to turn the crowd against you. Or maybe you're still in that fight. Comment how you plan to end it. As I walked out that night, the air smelled of cold victory, metallic, honest. Laura touched my arm. "You just pulled the first domino," she said. She was right again. The rest were already falling in slow, inevitable sequence. 2 days later, the HOA office door was padlocked. A county notice flapped on the glass. "Administrative hold pending records review." Inside, through the slats, I could see Randy pacing on his phone. The image stayed with me. The man who'd once fined me for unapproved fencing, now fenced in by his own paperwork. Channel 8 ran a follow-up piece that night. They interviewed residents filling buckets from neighbors' hoses. One woman said, "We just want transparency. We never voted for that pipeline." Another added, "He's the only one who showed us documents. For once, he meant me." That was the sound of power transferring back to the people. Still, I knew the system needed closure, not chaos. So I drafted the reform proposal Sarah and I had planned, the Creek Charter Initiative. It spelled out 6 clauses: term limits, financial disclosures, public voting, fee caps, open archives, and a new ethics committee chaired by 3 residents not on the board. Attached was my offer of the $1 annual access license. We printed 50 copies and mailed them certified to every homeowner. The return date, February 14th. The same day the HOA's insurance cancellation took effect. In the meantime, Randy tried one last trick. He showed up at my gate with 2 contractors and a county inspector I didn't recognize. I walked out, recorder in my pocket. "Morning," I said. Randy gestured at the trench. "We're repairing public infrastructure. Step aside." I smiled thinly. "This isn't public, Randy. It's private land under private ownership." The inspector, a tall man with a clipboard, looked uncertain. I handed him the deed copy. "Page 2, line 4. He read, lips moving. Then he nodded once. "He's right. Without a signed license, you can't touch it." Randy's face drained of color. "This is absurd." "No," I said quietly. "This is law." He stormed off, gravel crunching under his boots. The inspector lingered a second, scribbled notes, then said softly, "Good documentation saves a lot of trouble." That night I placed a small lamp by the window, its reflection glowing over the lockbox. Visual beat number 2, the stamped deed resting beside a mug of cold coffee, the quiet symbol of how paper outlasts anger. If you've ever caught someone abusing authority, tell me, did you forgive them once they fell? Or did you let the record speak for itself? Within days, the dominoes began to fall faster. Tom resigned first, citing ethical differences. 2 other board members followed. Only Randy held on, maybe hoping arrogance could still masquerade as strength. Sarah prepared a concise summary for regulators, 10 pages of correspondence, photos, and citations. She filed it with the Texas Department of Housing's HOA Oversight Unit. Within 48 hours, the agency acknowledged receipt and opened a formal review. On February 10th, Laura texted, Emergency homeowners meeting. Vote to dissolve the current board. The clubhouse was overflowing that night, every seat taken, air dense with anticipation and sweat. I didn't speak at first. I just listened. One by one, residents aired their grievances. Fines without hearings, funds missing, threats. When they finished, I stepped forward with the packet labeled Creek Charter. "This isn't about revenge," I said. It's about repair. The land will be licensed again, for $1, but only if this community agrees to run itself by daylight, not by closed doors." Someone in the crowd shouted, "Vote on it!" Hands rose like wheat in wind. The motion passed 46-2. Randy stood frozen. "You can't just rewrite governance." A voice from the back answered, "We just did." Afterward, as people filed out, Elena leaned against me and whispered, "You did it without raising your voice." "I had help," I said, watching Laura stack the signed charters into a binder. Paper and patience did the heavy lifting. The following morning, the HOA's attorney sent a terse email accepting the new structure, pending formal transition. I replied with one line: "Water service to resume upon recorded adoption of reforms." It happened at noon that same day. I walked to the vault, turned the valve back, and watched the meter spin alive again. By sunset, sprinklers whispered across lawns, and kids played in puddles like it was the first rain in a year. The neighborhood was noisy, but it was good noise, the kind that belongs. When the sky turned orange, I stood by the fence, the smell of wet clay thick around me, and thought about my father's notebook. Keep the creek clean. Maybe he hadn't just meant water. Maybe he'd meant people. If you believe in that kind of ending, the lawful, patient kind, say a few words in the comments for a neighbor who needs courage. Subscribe so you catch the next story before it begins. And share it, because knowledge is the only pressure strong enough to break concrete lies. The next morning, Channel 8 aired the final headline: HOA reforms after land dispute. Homeowners win transparency charter. Visual beat number 3, the camera lingering on a fresh sign at the entrance. Creekside community, self-governed since 2026. What changed after? Randy resigned. The county filed $2 million. His demeanor charges, falsified filing and trespass. The insurer reinstated coverage under the new charter. Sarah's firm got 3 new clients overnight. As for me, I planted new pecan saplings along the old trench line. Their roots will find cleaner water now. And somewhere beyond the pasture, another HOA is drafting a fine it doesn't understand yet. I just smile and whisper, "Next case." A week after the sign went up, I started getting letters, real ones, handwritten, from people in other towns who'd seen the broadcast. A retired lineman from Amarillo wrote, "Didn't know anyone could beat an HOA without losing his mind. You did it by the book. Respect." Another came from a teacher in Phoenix asking for a copy of the Creek Charter template. It hit me that this story wasn't just mine anymore. It had become a case study in self-defense by documentation. Still, closure wasn't fully clean. On February 20th, a sheriff's cruiser idled in front of the old HOA office. Randy was inside signing papers, face gray as a storm drain. The deputy emerged first with 2 folders. Randy followed, wrists free but pride cuffed tight. He wasn't arrested, just served. 2 counts of filing false instruments, 1 of criminal trespass. Watching him sign his acknowledgement receipt felt strangely quiet, like hearing the final click of a lock you no longer need. When he noticed me across the street, he gave a half shrug, as if to say, "You won." I didn't smile back. Winning was too simple a word for what this really meant. Laura stopped by that evening. "You think they'll learn?" she asked. "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe the next guy will think twice before swinging a pipe through someone's land." She laughed softly. "Well, they'll definitely remember your name." For a moment, the wind rustled through the pecan branches, sounding like distant applause. The new board held its first open meeting in early March. Transparent glass doors, live-streamed on the community website. I sat in the back, no need to speak. They reviewed budgets line by line. Vote was displayed in real time on a projector. It felt civilized again, like governance instead of siege. Tom rejoined as treasurer under the new charter, this time by homeowner election. When he saw me in the hallway, he raised his thermos. "No hard feelings," he said. "None at all," I replied. "Hard lessons maybe, but no hard feelings." If you've ever watched a corrupt structure collapse under its own paper, you know that strange satisfaction, the one that hums somewhere between justice and peace. Tell me if you've seen it happen where you live, or if you wish it would. By April, the creek ran clear for the first time since the pipe went in. The county's inspection confirmed the new legal route, fully permitted, insured, and routed outside my boundary. Sarah forwarded me the report with a smiley face drawn in ink. "Case closed," she wrote. Then came the call from the state ombudsman's office. They wanted permission to use the Creek Charter Initiative as a model for reform proposals statewide. I said yes, on one condition, that credit go to residents of Creekside community, not me. This was never meant to be a brand. It was supposed to be an example. The local paper ran one last piece. Citizen action leads to statewide HOA transparency review. I clipped it, laminated it, and slid it into the lockbox beside my father's irrigation journal. His note still smelled faintly of cedar and dust. That night, Elena joined me on the porch. The air was warm, the sound of running water soft under the crickets. "You missed the fight?" she asked. "Not the fight," I said. "Just the focus." "What now?" I looked down the road where the streetlights faded into dark. "There's always another HOA somewhere that forgot who owns the ground beneath their bylaws." She smiled. "You're starting to sound like a mission statement." Maybe it is. If you think fights like this matter, because proper, tie rights are community rights. Leave a comment for the next homeowner who finds this video when they're scared to start, or at least like the video so they know they're not alone. The creek kept flowing, steady and unbothered, carrying away all the noise that had once drowned this place. I leaned back, closed my eyes, and let the hum of distant sprinklers blend with the soft rush of water, the sound of something mended. By mid-May, the frost had gone, and the air smelled like wet bark and cut grass. The board, now rebuilt under the Creek Charter, voted unanimously to host a community day, a quiet gesture of thanks to everyone who'd kept the peace. They called it Restoration Saturday. That morning, the lake shimmered like new glass. I carried a young oak sapling down to the shoreline, roots wrapped in burlap. Beside me was my neighbor Harold, an older man in flannel whose laugh sounded like gravel in a bucket. He'd been one of the first to call me troublemaker months ago. Now he was the first to volunteer. We dug side by side, shovels biting into the cool earth. "Never thought we'd be planting instead of arguing," he said. "Guess it takes a lot of paperwork to get back to simple things," I answered. When we set the tree upright, the wind caught its tiny leaves, and for a moment the world went still. The homes behind us tidy and bright, the water smooth, the sound of kids chasing each other on the path. Elena came over with a wooden sign she'd varnished herself. It read, "Welcome to Silver Pines. Respect lives here." The name change had passed the final vote 2 days earlier, a symbolic step away from everything the old HOA had stood for. We planted the sign beside the tree, Harold steadying it while I tamped down the soil. The mid-morning light spread evenly across the lake, soft and cinematic, as if the place itself wanted to be forgiven. The press didn't come this time. No cameras, no speeches, just neighbors shaking hands and children filling watering cans. Laura handed out muffins from a folding table, and even Tom in his sun hat laughed. And when the hose sprayed his shoes. I looked at Sarah standing a few yards back, sleeves rolled, coffee thermos in hand. "You sticking around for the next fight?" I called. She grinned. "Let's hope there isn't one, but if there is, document everything. If you believe I fought the right way, and that this is how these stories should end, say something in the comments for a friend who might need it. Subscribe so the next fight for fairness finds you first, and share this so another community learns that lawful patience still works. That's on us." When everyone left, I stayed behind with Harold, tightening the last rope around the oak's stake. The soil smelled alive again. The wind pushed gentle ripples across the lake, carrying reflections of roofs, trees, and sky, all blending like they belonged together. He straightened his back and looked at the sign. "Think it'll hold?" I nodded. "Yeah, everything does, once you plant it right." As he walked off toward the street, I stayed for a while, listening to the hum of sprinklers and the far-off chatter of life returning to normal. The oak stood firm, small but certain, its leaves flickering in the sun like green confetti against the blue. I picked up my father's notebook from the bench and wrote one last line under his "Creek's clean now, the people too." Then I closed it, tucked it under my arm, and turned toward home, quiet, lawful, and free.